Hello and welcome to Retrogaming Network. I'm Zoidberg, and as a writer for GamesX and Amiga Action, I used to review video games for a living. That's me in the corner. This is the re-review, where I take a look back at all the games that I play-tested during this time. In each episode, I'm going to take a selected game and see how I feel about it all these years later. Has my opinion changed, or do I stand by my original score? In this episode, I'm going to take a look at OutRun Europa from Probe Software, released by US Gold in September 1991. In the arcades, OutRun is rightly heralded as a landmark racing title, and the production of home versions fell to Probe Software. With 123 games credited to them on retro gaming website Moby Games, Croydon-based Probe were founded in 1984 by Fergus McGovern and Bakis Paraskiva. McGovern sadly passed away in 2016, but his impact on the UK gaming industry as a whole cannot be understated. He left behind a legacy of talented programmers, artists and designers, many of whom are still working today. Although they did produce a few original titles of their own, Probe were primarily known for their arcade conversions and movie licenses. OutRun for the Amiga was released in 1989, and as a huge fan of the arcade original, I found it to be a massive disappointment. The original's sense of speed is almost entirely absent, and it looks as though you're driving a Ford Cortina rather than a sleek Ferrari. Despite this lack of quality though, it was a huge sales success, and soon after, US Gold announced that OutRun Europa was in development, although this development would be delayed a few times before its final release in 1991. Being free from the shackles of a license allowed the designers to make the game that they wanted. No longer were you shackled to racing on four wheels, with races taking place on bikes, cars and even jet skis. There is a convoluted story linking the levels together, but let's face it, this is OutRun. We don't need a story. All we need is the open road, a ticking clock and traffic to weave through. So let's take a look at what I thought of the game back in 1991 with a look back at my original review. My review appeared in issue 21 of GamesX, which hit magazine shelves in September 1991. Game of the Week in this issue was deservedly awarded to Magic Pockets by the Bitmap Brothers. I awarded OutRun Europa 5 X's out of 5, earning it an X-rated stamp in the process. Presentation received 18 out of 20, with both presentation and last ability being awarded 17 out of 20. I gave praise to the game's use of multiple vehicles, which added variety to the gameplay, and I was also impressed with the game's sense of speed overall. I also expressed my surprise at how good the game was, considering how poor OutRun and Turbo OutRun on the Amiga had both been. If you took the previous two Amiga OutRuns and stuck them together, you still wouldn't come up with a product to match the quality of this game. Are these words that I'm going to come to regret? Let's find out by replaying the game.
Okay, so it's time to play a little bit of OutRun Europa and see how this stacks up. Now, first thing that I find a little bit upsetting is the fact that you get a choice between sound effects or music, which is never a good thing. Now, I am playing this on the A500 Mini, so I have programmed in a button to replicate pressing up on the joystick. So it's instantly better than the other versions of OutRun that hit the Amiga. Arcade conversion was pretty terrible, but even Turbo OutRun didn't manage to get a good sensation of speed like this does. Although with the OutRun franchise being so synonymous with Ferrari, it's a little bit disappointing that you start racing a motorbike. I did get a time extend there, which it would have been nice if the game had told me. Oh, I made it. Apparently I made it. There was no on-screen indication of a goal, which is a bit weird. And so the next level is now where I get to ride a jet ski across the English Channel. I mean, this is an incredibly disappointing level because some kind of arrow on screen telling you where you're supposed to be going would have been nice. Instead, all you're doing is shooting at helicopters and avoiding boats that are moving across you. I mean, there's no real objective to this level, and that's really disappointing, and it actually makes it not fun. This level really does need an actual course to follow. This is not OutRun, plain and simple. So if you manage to get through the jet ski level without breaking your controller, this is the next stage where you're at the controls of a Porsche. But the gameplay is actually no different to what it was on when you were riding the motorbike. There's also not been enough done to differentiate the levels from each other. They all seem to have the same shade of green at the side, same sort of trees. Some way of being able to barge these cars out of your way would be nice. And then just when you thought you navigated the jet ski level and would never have to do anything like it again, we get this stage where almost exactly the same as the jet ski level, but this time you're in a boat, and it's just as awful. And then for the final two levels, you finally get what you come to an OutRun game for: driving a Ferrari.
OutRun Europa is certainly a massive leap in quality over the other OutRun games on the Amiga. That part of my original review is spot on, but even then it's not really a good game. Quite how I managed to like it so much back in 1991 I find frankly baffling. Let's get the positives out the way first. The game manages to maintain a good sense of speed throughout and is actually quite playable. The graphics are decent, with some nice looking cars and environments. The soundtrack by Matt Furness of Soccer Kid fame is also decent as well. It's just a shame that you have to choose between music or sound effects. The biggest problem for it though is that it carries the OutRun name. This brings with it a level of expectation that the game simply cannot meet, simply failing to look or sound like a Sega game in any way. Then, most damningly, there's the game's 2 water-based levels. These are truly awful stages, and when you consider that the game only has 7 levels in total, that's a pretty sizable chunk of the game. You'll either get frustrated to the point of switching it off, or resort to using a level skip just to see what comes next. There are many racing games on the Amiga that are worse than OutRun Europa, but there's also a lot that are better than it too. The prolonged development didn't help either, as by the time this game arrived, it was sharing shelf space with not one, but 2 games in the Lotus series. If I was reviewing it today, I simply wouldn't be able to give it any higher than 4 out of 10. Thank you for watching the re-review. If you're enjoying this series, then please show your support for our channel by liking, subscribing and hitting the notification bell. You can talk to me about Amiga games, or just video games in general, over on Twitter at UKGNZoidberg. I'll bring you the next episode in 2 weeks' time, so come back then to see what game I'll be discussing. If you can't wait to find out what that game is, I'll have a little hint coming up for you in a second. See you next time.